So here's my quick review of the movie, Netflix's movie, Tigertail. Um, and here are my 2 cents. Spoilers alert, so if anyone who hasn't seen the movie, please don't watch this review because there's some things that I tell that is going to kind of ruin the ending. So here are some questions. I'll go into question and then my answer format. What were your initial thoughts of the film and first reactions to seeing the trailer? Honestly, when I first saw the trailer and that scene where the little boy's running through the rice paddies, it really intrigued me because it's kind of hit home because my parents, my dad, would talk about carrying water up a big hill, or no, carrying water up and down a hill for his family and the labor work that he had to do growing up. So it kind of hit home. To see the little boy running through the rice paddies. And then it kind of jumped forward, and the scene jumped forward in time where he's now a grown man. He's dancing with this lady to some like kind of rock and roll music or some sort of music. And so that intrigued me because I like movies that talk about the main character's storyline and the journey that they're gonna go on. And so it excited me because then I was like, oh, I'm gonna go on a journey with this little boy to, I guess, a grown man or old man. What attempt does writer-director Alan Yang get right in the film that other filmmakers don't for mainstream audiences before? I think the part that I thought was really accurate for me was the scene, the lunch scene, where Pinju, I want to probably butcher the Mandarin, but Pinju, and his daughter were having lunch, and it's like complete silence. He's done eating. He's like quickly finished his meal, and he throws a napkin on the table, just waiting for her to finish. And that really resonated with me because there have been so many occasions where I have lunch or dinner with my dad, and it's the exact same way. He'll rush through, he'll eat through everything in silence, and then he'll just wait for you sitting there or reading his newspaper, waiting for you to finish. And so sharing a meal with my dad, like, it's literally like you're eating meals at the same time in parallel. And that's what sharing a meal to my dad means. Whereas, in my culture, and not my culture, but in my experiences of sharing a meal with, like, my friends or my husband or my kids and stuff like that, we chitter chatter, we talk about our lives, we share what went on during the day. And but when it's with my dad, it's a lot of silence, and conversations will occur if I initiate them and I start asking questions, and he'll kind of respond, but rarely will my dad actually ask questions about what's going on in my life. And then the part where Angela confronts him during that scene where she tells him that her fiance left him, and the dad's reaction of indifference and emotionally invalidating her also really resonated with me, and Alan Yang really got it right with that reaction, because the way the dad responded was, you could tell that he was hurt, and you could tell he was conflicted by feelings of, that he felt guilty or remorse, but also at the same time you can tell he was also helpless. Like, he didn't know what to do in that moment, just like he couldn't do anything. He didn't know how to do anything. And I think that's how a lot of Asian dads feel when their children express, really strong emotions towards them. They just don't know how to react, and it's this feeling of helplessness, but also upset. Did this help you understand your parents? And if so, how? Is there any specific scene that stood out? Personally, I mean, like, I wrote an entire book on how to deal with Asian parents, and my relationship with my parents has gotten a lot better over the years, and I think becoming a mom has solidified that. And there's just so many opportunities to have conversations about things about your parents, because now that I'm in a parent's role, then you kind of have common ground. So I think the film helped validate a lot of things that I knew about my parents and other Asian parents, and it was and it feels good that others share a very similar experience with their parents, that you're not alone, that this isn't just like your own thing, but other people also experienced it growing up. What I did really find interesting was that I loved comparing and contrasting the relationship of Zhen Zhen and Pin Ju, and then my own parents. So one difference is that in the film, Zhen Zhen and Pin Ju, they got married out of practical reasons because they wanted to move to New York, and her dad wanted to, just basically married her off to this guy who's going to take care of her and immigrate to New York. But with my parents, they didn't marry out of practicality. My dad was very much deeply in love with my mom when they got married, and her caveat was that they had to move to Canada for her to actually agree to marry him. So, and he surprises her every day, well, not every day, but he still is deeply in love with her, and I can tell. Recently, he planned an entire Norwegian cruise for her. Sadly, it got canceled because of COVID, but yeah, the little things like Valentine's Day, he'll get some chocolates for her, like that kind of stuff. And I think that that's the difference between my parents and the movie's portrayal of Asian parents. But the similarity that I did find with the parents that were shown in the film and my own parents is that's the struggle to survive when you first immigrate to a new country, or I guess to the States. For my parents, Canada. And that idea that food and shelter were your main concerns, and you're just really just trying to survive and save up a little bit so that you don't have to worry about every day of how you're going to get food on the table. I remember my dad would always tell me that half his paycheck would go to our mortgage, and the other half was to food, and we were living paycheck to paycheck, maybe saving I don't even know how much he would save in that paycheck so that he could have a little bit of a buffer. What is the number one thing you wish non-Asians would understand about the Asian immigration experience? I think it's just don't generalize us. Like, you see, someone who's yellow and you talk to them, and then they share their experience of how they immigrated here, that story is unique to that individual, and it doesn't mean that all Asians share this exact same story. And then also in that Asian identity, even within Asian identity, there's many cultures that exist within that identity. I mean, Vietnamese Canadian, Vietnamese American has that in itself has very different experiences. Chinese Canadian, Chinese American, Korean, Japanese, everyone within that Asian spectrum have their own unique experiences. And then just on an individuality basis, some may have more challenges than others, and some may have different challenges that others didn't. So I think for non-Asians, I think the best way to understand anyone's journey is to ask questions and be open-minded about what they experienced, and at the same time really appreciating the journey that they went through. And I think that's one of the things that I think most non-Asians wouldn't really they need to understand about us. What is the biggest takeaway overall for you personally? I think the strained relationship between westernized children and their immigrant Asian parents is prevalent across the globe. That strained relationship, I think it really validated my views and my just observations and experiences myself with my friends and peers and online. And I think although that the film kind of explored that and acknowledged that strained relationship, and then they also attempted to show how it was going to improve, at the end when Angela takes a trip to Taiwan with her father to kind of get to know her roots. It really only scratched the surface. And I think more dialogue and more conversation needs to occur about this strained relationship. It's a very subtle thing because it's not overt, right? For me, my own experiences with my parents, it's not like this big, violent, physical, abusive, traumatic experience that we have, that I had growing up. It wasn't just this huge, obviously they were in the wrong or something like that. They completely traumatized me. It's very subtle, the things that they do. It's that emotional invalidity, the unimpressed, the never able to support you in the way that you want to be supported. And I think ultimately my own biggest takeaway is that these conversations need to happen, because as a mother of two myself, I would really hate it. I mean, that's like my worst nightmare is if my kids felt that way about me, and that's my biggest takeaway. And of course, I've mentioned that I published a book called How to Deal with Asian Parents. Please check it out on my site. It's a great under 2-hour read for you. It's very practical, straight to the point. Not a lot of fluff. If you like fluff, then you may not like my book, but really, because this strange relationship really needs to get talked about, and it's my mission to empower individuals to talk about their feelings despite growing up in a culture that hid them. So let me know if you have seen this movie. What are your thoughts? Leave below in the comments.